On the 5th of January 2017, the Ovaherero and Nama people, led by their traditional leaders, filed a lawsuit against the German government over demands for reparations concerning the 1904 to 1908 genocide committed by the German forces in the former German Southwest Africa. Germany has acknowledged the atrocities committed during that time by its forces, where tens of thousands were killed, but has repeatedly refused to accept that it was an act of genocide and pay reparations. Hello and a warm welcome to your favorite current affairs show, One Exclusive. I'm your host, Joseph Sheefeni. At this hour, I'm joined by none other than the Paramount Chief of the Ovaherero people, Vekuii Rukoro. Paramount Chief, it's such an honor to have you on our show.
You're welcome. Thanks, Joseph.
First of all, can you tell us about the journey that you and your people have undertaken and how this all started?
Well, the journey was started by our late Paramount Chief, Vekuii Rukoro, who's really the one who decided to make sure that the German authorities should be held accountable for the genocide that was committed against our people, the Ovaherero and the Namas, way back in the 1900s, since they themselves have decided that they will simply stick head in the sand and pretend that this thing did not happen and, the world must forget about it. And initially, he was hoping that through discussions in a civilized manner, they will come to the table. They were not to be found for that kind of amicable solution, neither as between ourselves, nor with the intervention of our own government. And that's when we then decided, after he departed from this earth, that we should then escalate this through legal channels by filing a legal suit in the most favorable international jurisdiction that we could find after we did extensive research in this regard, and that was in the United States of America. That's how we ended up filing a case against Germany in New York in January last year.
So unlike your predecessor, when you took over, you took it further, you took it to the court.
Indeed.
Right. When it comes to the genocide, there's a vague figure when it comes to the number of Namas and Hereros killed at the hands of the German forces of that time. Some say it's 100,000, some say 80,000, some say 50,000. From your side, what's the correct figure?
Well, all available and reliable research by primarily German sources, German intellectuals, German historians, and others internationally clearly suggest, and this is documented clearly, suggests that it's in the region of 100,000 victims that we are talking about. Yes, Namibians, Ovaherero and Nama victims who have perished as a result of the genocide that was proclaimed and executed by German forces between 1904 and 1908.
Going back to the court, so how many times have your team met that of the Germans in court so far?
Well, we've been to the court, I think, by now around 4 times. Germany has only been there now for the first time only once through their legal representative. All the other times they simply refused to turn up and boycotted the proceedings, claiming that they trying to invoke sovereign immunity, that they are in a sovereign entity, an independent country, and that they will not appear in the foreign courts of another country, which obviously we disputed because as is a well-established principle of international and international humanitarian law, genocide is one crime which is exempted clearly, that a nation state cannot plead sovereign immunity and in terms of established principles of customary international law as well as even treaty international law to which Germany itself is a party, such as the Treaty of Rome, just to mention one, and others. And in the end, we resorted to some legal strategies which threatened their vital national interest, and they realized that they stand to lose a lot. And during the last proceedings, they turned up and instructed a lawyer to represent them, and things turned.
Yes, can you give us
they ended up being there.
A glimpse of the mood in that New York courtroom as your legal team met that of the Germans in the New York District Court?
Well, it was a different atmosphere from the previous 3 occasions that we used to be there, because the two sides now had their legal teams there, and you could see that the atmosphere now started to become adversarial. Obviously, the German lawyer already by then had filed also an application to try and throw out our application, trying to argue that we lack our case has no merit for lack of so-called jurisdiction, and which we look forward to argue the case. The judge postponed the case to give the Germans an opportunity to prepare their case thoroughly and to come and argue the case on the 3rd of May. So the atmosphere was now getting very exciting and very electric because after all, after putting up this big hula baloo about they will never come to New York and we can go to hell, we are just 2 small native tribes from Africa, and this is the big European superpower, and it cannot be dragged to court by these 2 natives. Yes, we managed to drag them to court, and they were there.
Did you have any idea that they were going to turn up at all?
Yes, we knew that they had a lot to lose if they do not pitch up. And I had no doubt that they will come.
One of your demands in court is that you be involved in the discussions between the Namibian government and the German government as well. If afforded this opportunity, what will you bring to the table?
Well, as you correctly put it, is one of our alternative prayers or demands in court that look here, the 2 governments are there trying to talk about us without us. They are talking about the genocide of our parents, which affected, amongst others, things like the land that the Germans expropriated without compensation from our parents, and which lands by today as well as livestock, cattle, and other properties, which today should have been our inheritance, right? Because we are the children of those people. Now, but we are not there. International law and United Nations principles governing these things state very clearly that the children of people who suffered genocide, people in our shoes, have the full right to speak for themselves with regimes like Germany on situations like this, and not just to be represented by an aggressor state like Germany and the country of which they are citizens. That's the law at the international level. And international law, according to our constitution, is part of our domestic law. So in other words, that is also our own law. And our government is not abiding by its own law. It's also not abiding by the resolution which was taken in 2006 unanimously by the National Assembly of our country. So what we are saying is, let us simply apply the law and the policies, the national policies of this country, so that we, together with our government, can sit at a conference table on the same side and confront the Germans, who should be the enemy in this matter, together, rather than for our government now to join forces and become an ally of the Germans, jump in the same political bed with the Germans and treat us, the victim groups, as if we are the enemies of our own government. That is what we are asking the court to rule on. We have a substantial interest in this matter. Now, rather than for the government to try and pick puppet groups, just like the South Africans used to do, go around and pick puppet chiefs who do not even represent 5% of the affected groups, and then try to present them to the people and to the world and to the Germans. The Germans by now have done their research, and they also know that these people are not truly representative. If the government doubts what I am saying, call a referendum. We will embarrass you, because we are the genuine representatives of the victim groups and their interests, and not the rubbish that the Germans are trying to feed our people through so-called development aid, coming to put up a clinic here, coming to put up a hospital there, coming to put up a school here, and coming to put up a tar road there. That's not what our people died for, and that's not what our case is all about.
Currently, you are two separate groups, your group and that of governments. Should you then be concerned?
So we have no problem. We have no problem with Dr. Ngavirwe as a government representative or as a government spokesperson, because he represents government's viewpoint, which is not our viewpoint. So we are happy with him to speak on behalf of government and to push forward government's agenda, whatever government's agenda is. But he cannot speak on our behalf because he doesn't know what the Ovaherero of Namibia and the Namas of Namibia want. Zero zip.
I understand that reparations can take many forms, either money or in kind. What is your preference?
Well, this is a question that, for obvious reasons, I wouldn't want to answer directly at this point in time. It's a matter to be discussed between us directly with the German authorities and to see what is possible in the circumstances. But we would be flexible. It's a question of what is, as I say, what is possible. But reparations is reparations. And as you say, it comes in various forms. And we will be ready to engage with the German authorities and see what is the best form of reparation given today's conditions and given what we are going to present to them and what our demands are going to be, what our expectations are, and also given their own economic situation and what their own limitations are and abilities. So, yeah, as I say, we are ready to negotiate around this issue.
Since you are not yet so sure on compensation, the German and Namibian government are already almost at this stage where they are already talking about what they call a trust fund. What is your take on that? Because it is said that it's going to benefit the affected communities, in this case, which are your communities.
Well, that is the proposal from the German government, that they are basically pushing down the throat of the Namibian government. We are not bothered by that. Whether they agree, whether they put it in writing, whether they sign it off, it doesn't bother us. It doesn't affect us. If Germany wants to put money in that trust fund and how they are going to use it, and I don't know where they are going to use it, our struggle will continue until we are part of an arrangement to which we put our signature. So to us, what they agree to, without our involvement, without our participation, is totally irrelevant.
Do you want to be aligned with government, our government, somehow on this issue?
Well, that is exactly where we say, please involve us because it is our business. It is our genocide. Therefore, take us on board. So yes, we want to be aligned. But they don't want us to be aligned. And if they want us to be aligned, they want us to be aligned in a puppet format. And we shall not accept a puppet role. Not now, not in future.
The only way that your group will join government is only if your group is put in charge.
We want to be in charge of our own destiny, not in charge of government. We want to join a conference table where we speak on our own behalf, on our own issues, about our own genocide. We are not saying we are going to take over government's role and speak on behalf of government as if we were government. No. The National Assembly resolution said, and I repeat, and those are the marching roles, the marching orders, and the mandate that Parliament gave government. Let there be discussions between the affected groups and Germany. And let government also participate in that process. Period. That's what the National Assembly decided. Now we are being kicked out of those discussions and told, go. You are not part of this. You must only participate in advisory committees, like the old apartheid type advisory committees of the apartheid days of John Foster and other puppet governments.
How would you say has this issue the genocide issue affected your reign as the Paramount Chief?
It hasn't affected it in any shape or way, at least not in a negative way. I'm just following in the footsteps of Hosea Kutako, who stood up and said this country and the people of this country deserve to be free from foreign domination. The same with the late Paramount Chief, Vekuii Rukoro, who decided that Germany must be held accountable for the genocide, for the return of the skulls to serve as evidence of their criminality and the crimes against humanity. I'm just following in those footsteps. Nothing more, nothing less.
The reason why I asked that question is because earlier you mentioned that there were some groups, a very small percentage, that actually decided to side with government on this issue.
So, they have decided to be used against the broader interests of the victim groups. That's, in every struggle, there are always people who will find the price right. At the beginning of this very thing, those chiefs were arguing that the genocide was not only committed against the Hereros and Namas, and that the genocide affected everybody, and therefore that's why it must be led by a government. Today, the very same people, you hear what the song that they are singing now? Now they have come full circle. They say, no. This is purely a Herero and a Nama genocide.
So they've made a U-turn now?
A total U-turn. After they have taken a beating from us, and even from the Germans themselves, because the Germans had said, no, we don't know what you are talking about. The order signed by von Trotter only speaks of Hereros and Namas. Now you are coming here, you are talking of a Namibian genocide. Which Namibian genocide?
But how did those groups come to that conclusion that other groups too were
because that's what the Namibian government originally, that's the song they started with when they were disagreeing with us. Even 2 years ago, our own president, in his State of the Nation address, what did he say? He said, don't tell me of a Herero and a Nama genocide. If you talk like that, then the Namibian government will not get involved. It has to be a Namibian genocide. But today, even he himself is now talking of a Herero and a Nama genocide. Because even international law, in the way it is defined, I'm sure the lawyers for which they have paid 50 million now would have advised them that you don't talk in that language. It's a different issue. Historically, legally, it doesn't make sense.
Speaking of the president, last week he was...
They are good learners.
All right. We are of the understanding that he referred to you as a troublemaker with other groups such as the ELPM for continuously bringing up this discussion. In other words, basically, for him it seems that it's opening up an old wound. What would your response be to that?
See, the president is the father of the Namibian nation. Apart from that, he's also a good friend of mine. I can only assume that he's under tremendous pressure from various quarters for him to make such a statement, which is regrettable. I will leave it at that.
Before we get to your last thoughts, what the court case, what do you expect this time around, the next hearing?
Well, I suspect that this time around it will go there. It will progress one step ahead, but things will start to take a shape. And they will start to take a shape, which will probably determine that during the next stage, things will have to reach a crossroad where either finally this matter will be determined through the legal route, or whether Germany will see the light of day and decide that things have now reached the point where it will have to make a choice to probably try and go the diplomatic route. But those are Germany's choices. To us, it's neither here nor there. We are ready for battle, whichever way Germany chooses. We are comfortable to pursue Germany for as long as it takes, whichever route Germany chooses.
Lastly, Paramount Chief, is there anything perhaps that you would like to share with the public from your side?
All I want to tell the Namibian people, especially the non-Ovaherero and non-Nama Namibians, is that they must understand that Germany came all the way from Europe to come and conquer our lands. We resisted. And they felt that the only way that they can take our lands, after our forefathers put up fierce resistance, was to actually issue a decree to say, these people, we must take them away from the face of the earth. And then they proceeded to attempt to do so. And in the end, 80% of the Hereros and 50% of the Namas were actually wiped off the face of Namibia. And international law says that cannot be left unchallenged. That is the fight we are fighting. And we need everybody's solidarity. Every Namibian and the other well-meaning sections of the international community to come to our assistance. And whatever reparation we get, whether in money or in kind, the benefits in the end will not just be felt by Hereros and Namas. Because in all the areas inhabited by Hereros and Namas, who live there? All Namibians of other tribal groups, they live there. And in a non-racial, non-tribalist Namibia, nobody will be excluded from those benefits.
Paramount Chief, let me thank you again for your time.
Pleasure indeed.
All right. And that is all we have for you. Be sure to share your views with us on our social media pages. From me, Joseph Sheefeni, it's goodbye.